Welcome back. So we've got training camp coming up in a couple weeks, right? And shortly after training camp, we get into the preseason. Regular season follows 17 days after. So right now is the time where all 32 fan bases can be pretty happy, right? And whether it's Stanley Cup expectations happy or not, in this video, I'm going to try to make an argument for how all 32 teams could win a which, for any of the teams in the league to win a Stanley Cup. Not that all 32 are going to get together and go, you know what, we think we should just divide the cup and just put all our names on it this year. It's not going to happen. So I'm going to go through division by division. This is how I envision the standings being this year. We'll see whether or not that's the case. And I'll go through in order. So Columbus fans, teams last. So we'll start with the Pacific. Vegas. For Vegas to win the cup, they have to show that Marc-Andre Fleury, great goaltender, all-time great. They're going to retire his number, all that when he retires. But Robin Lehner's got to show he is the starter that they envision him to be. And all of those star players have to come together. They have to find consistent playoff scoring. Edmonton, for Edmonton to win, it's really a matter of, it's not McDavid and Draisaitl. It's a matter of the depth being able to show up. And Duncan Keith needs to show that he can turn back the clock and he can be every bit as useful as the Oilers think he can be. For the Flames, who I chose to wear for this because blasty, why not? For the Flames, it really is that they've kept that core together. At this point, the core is still together. And they have to show that they're worthy of that faith being put in them. So if they accomplish the kind of things in the postseason that they did in the regular season a couple of years ago, Calgary's a contender. Yep, absolutely they could do it. Vancouver, it does get more difficult as you go down in the division. But for Vancouver, Demko has to be lights out, and that's going to be a lot of these cases. It's going to be the goaltending, because we know goaltending is really important come playoff time. But the young guys have to mature quickly, and the moves made by Jim Benning have to work. This is the year where Jim Benning's moves that he's made have to work out for him. So that means OEL's got to produce and show that he's still a top tier defenseman, and Garland has to continue his production increase. He's increased his totals every year, at least points per game wise. Seattle, they have to kind of get a little bit of luck along the way. They'd have to catch some guys off guard, but they could make the playoffs. It is the Pacific Division. It does have the appearance of being weaker than others. So there is the possibility they make the playoffs, and then anything's possible come playoff time. Grubauer had some shaky moments for Colorado in that second round series. He would need to up his game, of course. For the Kings, the kids have to be fantastic. We would have to see one of the kids, whether it's Byfield, whether it's Turcotte, somebody has to come in and be absolutely amazing for them. They need for Kopitar, Brown, Doughty, for their veterans to really step up too. And if there was some kind of youthful energy they could throw towards Jonathan Quick, and if he was their goaltender in the playoffs, and if he could turn back the clock by about a decade, good chance. So again, it gets difficult as you get down in these divisions. San Jose, Erik Karlsson needs to turn it around. Brent Burns as well. Burns' production has fallen off. They need for their goaltending to work out. They've changed both goaltenders. And they would need for guys like Hurdle to say, you know what, this might be my last go-around with San Jose, and really use that as a rallying point. Anaheim, it's tough to make an argument for Anaheim, but John Gibson has proven he can be one of the best goalies in the league, so they have that. They have a lot of good young players like Drysdale, who I think is going to be an awesome defenseman, and Zegras, who should make that leap this year production-wise. They also need Getzlaf to really be a leader. If they're going to go on a really unlikely cup run, a lot of things have to fall their way. It's a lot. Now we go over to the Central Division. Colorado, get out of round 2. We're going to get to Toronto and talk about round 1, and it sounds like it's a joke, but it's not. For Colorado, it's get out of round 2. Get over if that's just a mental break, or whether it's just coincidence that they keep losing in round 2. They get into the conference final, get some of that confidence going. It is possible that Colorado this year becomes champions, and remember, they right now are odds-on favorites to win it. Winnipeg just needs to have their star players in their lineup. They need for guys like Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers to really gel together and show that ability to get over the hump in the playoffs. I love the core for the Winnipeg Jets. I would love nothing more than to see a Winnipeg Jets Stanley Cup win. If a team in Canada was going to win it, it would actually be kind of really fun to see it with Winnipeg, because they've never been in a Stanley Cup final, and it has been so long since the Canadian team won the Cup. It'd kind of be great if it was a small market Canadian team that did it first. St. Louis, they need to rediscover what they had in 2019. There was definitely a hot streak going there. They were one of the hottest teams in the league in the second half of the season, and they need to rediscover that. And it's going to be tough because a lot of the guys who won that cup have moved on, but there's still enough there. There's still enough of a core there, and they still have Binnington. They just need to get hot at the right time. They've shown that they can win it. Minnesota, well, first off, at the time of recording this, Kaprizov hasn't signed yet, so that's major, right? He is the one that's going to move the needle as to whether or not they stay in a playoff spot or maybe they don't. Again, goaltending, key thing. It's going to be a key thing throughout this video. Not playlist. This is not a playlist. It's a single video. I'm used to doing playlists, though. Minnesota, though, a lot of things have to fall their way. And yet they have a good blue line. There's some solid depth there. I like their goaltending. I don't love the goaltending, but I like the goaltending. And it's a matter of if Guerin can really figure out the center spot and keep Kaprizov happy, they have a chance. Dallas needs to rediscover the underdog mentality from 2020 that got them to the Stanley Cup final. They need a healthy Tyler Seguin. They need for the Klingberg negotiations not to overshadow anything. They need for Radulov to be healthy. Rope Hintz to continue to be that fantastic goalie he's been. And I would also say that come playoff time, if they really want to win it, a healthy Ben Bishop might go a long way towards that. Bishop has shown he can be excellent in the playoffs before, and that might be a key thing for Dallas. For Chicago, turn back the clock. They need Taves healthy, Kane to continue clicking with DeBrincat. They also need for Seth Jones to show that contract he signed with them is going to be worth every penny. And for Marc-Andre Fleury to be the Marc-Andre Fleury he was in Vegas, not the Marc-Andre Fleury he was towards the end of his time in Pittsburgh. Nashville. It's a tough argument for Nashville. However, I will do my best. Really solid blue line. They need a bounce-back year from either Johansson, Duchesne, or preferably both. And they probably need a little bit of good fortune here. I don't have them necessarily making the playoffs, but if they get in there, they showed in 2017, making the playoffs is all you need when you're Nashville. I think they play better as underdogs than they do as favorites, and that's probably something that would happen here. And who knows, maybe they'd go to the final, and maybe this time they'd win it. Arizona is a very tough argument. Arizona's clearly looking towards next year's draft and saying, we wouldn't mind being outside of the playoffs in order to, I don't know, get a top draft pick. Oh, is that Shane Wright? Oh, yeah, we wouldn't mind one of those. But at the same time, if things fall their way, if the pickups they got from the Canucks, if one or two of those players kind of had a bit of an attitude about being dumped off by Vancouver, and if the pickups they've made, the contracts they've picked up, if some of these guys have bounce back years, it's possible they make more noise than we're expecting. It is really tough to argue a Stanley Cup there. It is very difficult to argue a Stanley Cup there. Yeah, because basically everything has to work for Arizona to do that. So we'll move over to the East. We'll start with the Atlantic. Tampa Bay, they've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. They need to show that the loss of depth they suffered in the offseason is okay because they can replace that from within. They've added Corey Perry up front, and they need to show they're okay. The blue line is still good enough to win a Stanley Cup. Their goaltending is good enough to win a Stanley Cup. It's just a matter of the forward depth holding up. Florida, getting out of the first round is a good start. And that's something they haven't done since 96. But the forward depth is excellent. The blue line is underrated. And as long as Spencer Knight is ready to be the backup, and they're one of those teams that maybe brings in a goaltender, see what happens, but yeah, for Florida, they really on paper look like they should be one of the favorites to win a Stanley Cup. And yet, there will still be that doubt until they get out of that first round. They need to show that they can compete. They gave Tampa a run for their money, so they need to show that they've built on that. I like some of the changes they made in the offseason. If Aaron Ekblad's healthy, that goes a long way too. Boston, that is another team that needs to turn back the clock. Also, Marchand, Bergeron need to avoid looking like they're getting any older and just continue to produce. That blue line has to hold up, and it is an unproven goaltending tandem that they're starting the season with. It's possible Tuukka Rask comes back mid-season, but they're starting the season with an unproven goaltending tandem. So if Swayman got hot or if Ullmark was lights out, again, goaltending goes a long way to winning his Stanley Cups. Toronto, and I know that there's a lot of people who've jumped off of a bandwagon with Toronto when it comes to the Stanley Cup, but I'm going to say this. I really think this is a good team on paper. Yes, they spend a lot of money on their top four, but outside of that, their blue line is capable. Their goaltending, I think, is underrated. I think Mrazek and Campbell, as long as they can share that net and as long as they both stay healthy, and, you know, if this all goes well, Toronto could absolutely finish higher than fourth in the division. And once you get out of that first round, once you get that monkey off your back, it could go a long way for Toronto. I really do think that they've got some excellent talent there, and it's just a matter of going on a little bit of a run, building that momentum. If they'd knocked out Montreal, who knows, right? If they'd knocked out Montreal. Speaking of Montreal, for them to win a Stanley Cup, they have to overcome the loss of Shea Weber. They have to overcome the loss of Philippe Danault, potentially the loss of Jesperi Kotkaniemi. We will know tomorrow whether or not Kotkaniemi will be going to the Canes, and then what Montreal does from there. There's definitely perceived weakness down the middle. Whether that's really a weakness or not, we'll know once the season gets going. But if they address all of this properly, yeah, they'll be in contention. And as they showed in the North, all they had to do is make it into the playoffs. Montreal capable of going on a run. Carey Price is Carey Price. Ottawa, the kids need to arrive early. For Ottawa to win a Stanley Cup this year, Ottawa's kids need to be ready early and just go out there and prove people wrong. Prove that they are absolutely ready and that they can jump past some teams ahead of them. Whether maybe Boston falls back, Toronto falls back, Montreal, whoever falls back to allow them to get in there, they need to then show, yeah, these kids are good to go. Guys like Norris, Stützle, Brandstrom, potentially Gustafsson and net, right? So it is a tough sell, the idea of a cup, but sure, for this video's sake, why not? Speaking of why not, let's look at Detroit. People believe in Yzerman. There's a lot of parts coming into this roster this season that should be part of this team for, you got to think, the next decade. And if their goaltending holds, if they can keep their goals against down, if they can continue the progression they showed this past season, they could surprise some people. It is hard to argue a Stanley Cup. It's very hard to argue a Stanley Cup. They would need some big surprising runs, but Bertuzzi, being healthy and playing all season, could go a long way to helping them too. He only played 9 games this past season, and I think he's an underrated player. Buffalo. Figure out the Eichel situation, whether it's making a compromise with him and making it work, or something completely different. You've got to figure this out. So that's first and foremost. They have to straighten out the Eichel situation. They also need their goaltending to hold, which, with the moves they made in the offseason, I don't know. They wanted to keep Ullmark. They didn't keep Ullmark, and I'm not sure that I can foresee a goaltender being there that takes them that far. They might need a fountain of youth for Craig Anderson, as an example. And if Casey Middlestad could be for real, if Dahlin hits that next level, the potential's there, right? All right, moving off to the Metro, Washington. For the Capitals, it really is a matter of determination. The last 2 years that they've been eliminated early in the playoffs, it's felt like something's off with the Caps. And Ovechkin looked frustrated enough this past playoffs that could be huge if he can, have that chip on his shoulder and potentially carry that throughout next season. Ovechkin's capable. And for them, again, I like the goaltending's good, the defense is good, their forward depth is pretty solid. So everything for the Caps is there for them to win another one. They just have to get on that run. The Islanders. The Islanders have been in the Final Four 2 years in a row. Barry Trotz may very well be the best coach in the NHL. You may get arguments on other coaches as well. But yeah, as long as you got Barry Trotz behind the bench, you have a shot. And again, that's not to say that they don't have a good team, because they do. But it's that the Islanders in general are going to be competitive no matter who's on the ice, because their coach knows how to coach a system. And that system means that when somebody gets hurt that's top six and you move somebody else in, that player's already playing that system. You don't notice that loss of the player as much as you may have otherwise. Carolina. For Carolina, they need to be able to overcome the loss of Dougie Hamilton. They also need to be able to deal with the complete change in net. Like, who had Nedeljkovic, Reimer, and Mrazek all gone? I don't know of anybody who made that prediction. So for Carolina, it's a matter of, showing that they're able to get new goaltenders in there and they can make it work with Freddie Anderson, keep Ronta healthy. And Svechnikov, if he can reach that level as a goal scorer, we know that's there. This team could be very scary. Absolutely. And if they do poach Kotkaniemi from Montreal, that could be huge for them. I know it throws the whole cap thing out of whack for the team, but offer sheets will do that. Pittsburgh. The Penguins, you have Crosby, you have Malkin. You don't bet against the Penguins. I know people are going to say to bet against the Penguins because of their goaltending. I'm not willing to go that far. I do think Pittsburgh has everything they need in order to potentially make a run. I have concerns with Jari. And definitely I would think if DeSmith was the starter going into the playoffs, I would have concerns there too. But this is a team that's done it with goaltenders we didn't think they would be able to do it with, going all the way back to Lemieux's days when there were questions about whether or not Barrasso would ever be able to win a championship, and then he won a couple. The Rangers need Lafreniere, Kakko, Kravtsov. They need two of the three to take that next step. Panarin stay healthy, Zibanejad stay healthy, or if they're going to be the ones to make that trade for Eichel, they can't gut their team in order to get Jack Eichel, and their goaltending tandem needs to be just as good as I think it is. So the Rangers need a lot. And if Adam Fox could keep up that Norris Trophy level play, that'd help too, right? Philly needs a huge bounce back defensively. They need it from their blue line. They need it from their goaltending. And they need for Claude Giroux to kind of look at this as maybe it's a last chance for him to bring a Stanley Cup to Philly. He's in a contract year. He needs to play like it's a contract year and play that desperate hockey. We've seen him play before. There have been times where I've absolutely loved Giroux's game, and that's the guy that we need back, is the one that's really competitive, gets under the skin of the opposition, and shows he can lead Philadelphia in the playoffs when he needs to. New Jersey, they need to experience a huge jump. They have the goaltending to get that done. They added Dougie Hamilton on the blue line. That should help their special teams. And they really just need that injection of success. Jack Hughes needs to take that next step too. Sharon Govich, who had a very good year, they could use a little more offense from him a little more often, which may very well happen, and we'll see how it goes. But New Jersey, it's a dark horse, but I've made the argument. So I think Blackwood's an excellent goaltender. I think there's some good parts there. So we'll see how things go for New Jersey. But again, and Hamilton really is the wild card here. He did very well in Carolina. Can that translate into New Jersey as well? And again, love Blackwood. And finally, Columbus. So yes, Columbus fans, we're going to talk about Columbus a little bit here. Losing Jones hurts, but they still have Elvis in net. Elvis and Jonas have shown that if they're the goalies in a playoff series, they can steal you a playoff series. And once you steal one playoff series, maybe you go on a bit of a run. And they may have a very motivated Jacob Voracek who wants to show the Flyers, you guys gave up on me too soon. And since they're in the same division, he has multiple games against Philadelphia where he can get himself a little bit riled up, and who knows. Again, trying to argue some of these teams for a Stanley Cup in 2022, difficult, especially with allergy season being back and having to pause because I may sneeze here and there. But hey, allergy season means it's no longer 45 degrees Celsius outside. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. And there will be other 32-team videos between now and the start of the season, because they're fun to do. It's fun to look at, right? So there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support. If you haven't already hit like and subscribe, please do so. I will talk to you guys again soon.